Welcome to Codex, a history of video games. My name is Tyler Osby.
And I'm Mike Coletta.
And this week, we're going to talk a little bit about some history, a couple of things that are a little bit more recent. We want to talk about our spookiest moments in games. And I want to caveat for myself before we get into this is I don't really play horror games. These are not my, this isn't my definitive, these are the top 10 spookiest moments in video games kind of thing. This is just, for me, a person who doesn't play horror games, the spookiest moments I've ever had. Mike, do you have any similar caveats before we get into it?
I could call this episode Mike and Tyler's spooky moments for notorious scaredy-cats. That's probably really
That's
what
good.
it is, because we both don't really play horror games that much.
So some of the real,
scary.
truly spooky stuff I've never experienced because I don't go anywhere near that stuff these days.
But here's what we want to do, because this is going to come out on Monday, which is the 25th of October. That means we have one more week of spooky games left. So maybe my thought was we do this episode. Next episode, we do our topic. But then we could do emails of listeners' spooky moments.
Yeah, tell us your spooky moments.
So you should tell us your spooky moments and emails, and we'll share them on the show. It'll be fun.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It does sound fun. For as fun as scary things can be, because I get scared too easily. Okay. You ready for my first one?
I want to hear about your first one.
It is the moment you rise up or down, I guess it's down and then up, from the bathysphere into the first Bioshock. Like when you get there and there's a splicer and the lights cut out.
Yeah.
That's super spooky.
Yeah, it's super scary. That part and the part, maybe it was only in the demo or something. I did play all of Bioshock, but the part where there's like a splicer pushing a cart. Or not a cart, like a baby pram, you know?
And there's a gun
it's
in there.
the British way of saying it, and there's a gun in there instead of a baby, and she's pushing it like it's her baby. That part freaked me out a little bit.
In Bioshock, there's a lot of freaky moments. There's also the guy who makes the splicers, and he's like the surgeon, and that's like the first area you go to, and it's terrifying. Also, in Bioshock 2, when you fight a big sister for the first time,
those are scary.
Yeah, a lot of moments, like Bioshock's good because it mixes in the creepiness and then also just severe moments of dread.
Yeah,
you know?
and all of the stuff with Sander Cohen, the art guy, right? I feel like there's some really messed up,
creepy
stuff going on there for sure.
That's probably as horror as I go.
Yeah,
you know
that's
what I mean?
one of the I wouldn't say it's the spookiest game I've ever played, but it is it is probably the spookiest game that I've played and truly enjoyed and really love that series. I love Bioshock series, all three of them. And I've played them all, and even though I'm not really a spooky guy, I get scared of stuff. I did really enjoy that series, and it remains one of my favorites.
I also think Bioshock gets progressively less scary as each sequel goes along.
Yeah, Infinite's not that scary.
The first game's like almost, you could say, a horror game.
Yeah, almost.
And then the second game, it's like, okay, it's not so bad. And then the third game, they're just completely like, we're in an action movie almost, you know?
Yeah. The third game, they weren't really, like the first two kind of build themselves a little bit, or at least that was sort of what the marketing said. They were like, this is going to be scary, or at least that's kind of the vibe we got from it. With Infinite, they weren't trying to do that. It wasn't supposed to be a spooky game, and it really wasn't.
It was mostly a game about quantum physics.
Yeah.
Right? And the multiverse. There you go.
And the multiverse, and he doesn't row. No, he doesn't row.
Into the Big Daddy verse is what they should have called it.
Into the Big Daddy verse, yeah.
All right, this next game, though, is shared between you and I.
Yeah.
And this one we covered last week is Fear.
Yeah.
First Encounter Assault Recon.
And just from the name of the game, you'd think we probably shouldn't play this one.
But we did.
But we did.
Because we're misguided.
That's right. Well, and I was in high school and didn't know I didn't like horror things yet.
Yeah, I think for me, I have a scary moment and you have a scary moment, and both I think involve Alma, the little girl, right?
Yep.
Mine was the thing I remembered, which I played through again when I did my playthrough for the episode last week. Her in the ventilation shaft that you're crawling in. Oh my gosh, why?
Yeah.
Why? In tight quarters, and then you also have this little girl running after. Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh. Unsettling.
The one that gets me, that got me, and I remember jumping in my chair and like yelling there's at one point in the game you're walking along kind of a narrow path, and at the end of it is a ladder you're gonna go down, and you're just kind of walking along it, and you haven't really seen anything scary in a little while, and it's just kind of like the perfect time to scare somebody is when they've let their guard down, right? And You get onto the ladder and you sort of turn around because it's first person. So you spin around as you're getting onto the ladder. And then the way they move the camera, like you look up from the ladder after you have set your feet on it and you start going down, you look up and there's this creepy little girl just standing right there. And like she's just there for a second and you like the game sort of pushes you down, I think, like as you're going down the ladder. But if you climb back up the ladder to see who this spooky person is, they're gone.
Oh, yeah. Classic ghost stuff right there.
Yeah,
Full-on ghost stuff.
You see them just for a moment, and then you try to check again, and you're gone. They're gone. You're like, what the heck? There's
I
also
definitely hit that moment. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
There's also other moments where they start to do like the psychological stuff where I think it has to do with the bad guy sort of like projecting images into your mind. It's been years since I played this game, but you like walk into hallways and they'll be like nice and clean, and then it'll like flash for a second. It'll be full of blood and like stuff on the wall, and then it flashes back to clean. That stuff's scary too.
Yeah, that is the like dream sequencey. Like when what's real and what's not real hits in.
Yeah,
It definitely gets kind of dicey there. Fear is, I mean, the scares are there. You know, I kind of gave it like, I don't hope people think I gave it a bad review. It just didn't live up to my expectations as when I was in high school playing it. It's still a very scary game, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're looking for some spooks this holiday spooky season, spend $10 on good old games. Play Fear 1, you know?
Yeah, and I think there is something to be said for like, it was super realistic back in the day. The graphics aren't as good now, 15 years later. I fired it up on my 360 a couple of days ago to see, and I was like, whew, this is not as, it's not as realistic. Like, because my standards have risen, I can sort of see the strings behind the curtain, and it's a little bit less scary, but they still nailed the aesthetic and the atmosphere of a scary game, you know?
Yeah, they really did. I didn't
play any of the other ones. I don't know. I guess they were probably scary too. They probably tried to one up each other on scares, right?
Well, that's the thing is like Fear 3, from what I understand from like reading and watching things, is like not really scary at all.
Really?
Like very much like an action movie with horror stuff around there. Almost like Doom.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would say like the new Dooms are not really horror games. Like there's a lot of like scary, like the monsters are like very scary and like they're all gross and spiky
but you know
and
you
stuff.
have a gun and you can blow them up. That's the
right,
key.
exactly. There's not really any jump scares. Doom 3 did have a lot of like monster closets where things would just jump out at you. That one was a little bit more of a horror game than, and I think
Isn't
maybe
it in the original Doom 3, the non-BFG edition, you either had your choice of flashlight or shotgun.
yeah, you could not have your flashlight out at the same time as your gun.
And then they changed it so you had a flashlight taped to your gun, which makes more sense.
Yeah. I see what they're going for, I think, in the original of this, like, well, if you're going to be able to fight bad guys, then you can't see them, or you're going to have a harder time seeing them, and, like, using your flashlight to sort of make yourself feel better is going to leave you defenseless. Like, I sort of see what they're going for with the balance there. I don't know if it was as fun as they thought it was, but that was, like, one of the first mods that came out for Doom 3 in, like, the first week after it came out was the duct tape mod, is what it was called, and it was just like, well, when you use your pistol, you can also have a flashlight on it.
Here you go, pistol and a flashlight. Ooh.
Yep.
What a fancy soldier man. Okay. Yeah, so I would recommend Fear still. All right. My next game is not at all a horror game.
No.
It just had this horror part to it. And this has actually been popularized by streamers now, is like, I had my friend play Halo when they introduced the Flood for the first time. It's like a thing, which I didn't know about, but this was a scary moment because in the middle of Halo Combat Evolved, you just end up having like this weird found footage horror movie, and then the Flood are revealed.
Like gross monsters everywhere.
Yeah, and then Master Chief walks into the hallway, picks up the guy's helmet, and then you watch the footage, and it's just like, what do we just switch to Cloverfield? Why are we doing this? What's happening? And then you get this like really kind of truly creepy moment when the Flood arrive, and I think that made Halo for me.
Yeah.
You know, with just this kind of tone change, and it worked really well. And it's probably one of my favorite ways a new enemy type has been introduced into a game ever.
Yeah.
Like, it was just so well done. And it is a horror moment, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely a horror movie feel. So,
I think the Flood themselves too, as a species, are kind of very scary because like that's the whole point of these are Halo spoilers if you've never played any Halo games. This is like, but like the Halo rings, if I'm not mistaken, are sort of there as a defense mechanism against the Flood, because the Flood, once they get into a planet or they get into a solar system or whatever, they just consume as much as they possibly can. And the whole idea is that the Halo rings are this like fail safe, like they'll just clear a galaxy or whatever of the flood or of all life. They will destroy the flood's way of keeping themselves alive by just destroying all life in that galaxy. And so you have this like balancing act of like, well, we need to stop the halos because we don't all want to die, but also the flood are here and they're going to eat us all if we don't die, and they're going to take over anyway. And it's like gives Halo a sort of hopeless vibe a little bit.
The flood are an awful lot like glitter. You know, when someone brings glitter with a card on it, and then, there's glitter everywhere now. That's the flood.
And then the glitter multiplies, and the only way to get rid of it is to burn down your house and get rid of the food supply for the glitter.
Exactly. I'm about to burn down my house, because of glitter flood.
Yep.
Do you think that's what they had in mind, the Bungie devs? They're like, we want to make an enemy type that's like glitter.
Yeah, I think so. That's probably what they were going for.
Totally. Let's do one of yours, Tyler. Let's skip ahead and you pick one.
Okay.
It's yours.
So here's a scary moment for me in games, and this is a game that's it's about 20 years old now. Metroid Fusion, which Metroid games tend to be a little bit spooky in general, just the vibe, the atmosphere, kind of, because you're all alone and you're fighting monsters and stuff. But the SAX sections in Metroid Fusion are especially scary because in the storyline of Metroid Fusion, part of the whole deal here is that Samus has interacted with these X-parasites, and they had to do a whole bunch of, like, these X-parasites sort of like take on the form of different things that they eat or something like that. I'm sure I'm butchering the story here, but the TLDR is these parasites basically create a clone of Samus, except for it's Samus with all of her abilities. So in the beginning of Metroid Fusion, and you have no abilities after you've dealt with all of this stuff, there's this other Samus walking around with all your abilities, and it's always really scary when this other Samus shows up, and you just have to run away because she has all of your abilities and you have none, and so you just have to. It's just scary every time she shows up because there's just no way to beat her, and it reminds me of if anybody's played Metroid Dread recently. It's sort of like the Emmy moment, or the Emmy sections of the game, where you have to just run away. Although there is some ways you can fight back against the Emmy, and you know when it's coming when it's an Emmy room because you go through like the special door or whatever. But like SAX just shows up, and you just gotta like bail out, and it's scary. And as a like 10-year-old, I was very scared of those moments in that game. It's very scary.
That is scary. I feel like so much of the fear mindset from video games is like dread.
Yeah.
It gives me dread.
Yeah.
You know, which is why this newest Metroid is aptly named. But also, like, it just makes me feel uneasy, you know?
Yeah,
like,
and a feeling of helplessness, too.
Exactly. And that's like the fear. Like, I don't know if I can get out of it or not. And that's what my next game, which I don't ever really, I think I've talked about it once or twice. This is the game I play with my brother. It will probably never be on the history podcast only because it's technically still an alpha after like 5 years. And that game is 7 Days to Die. The whole point of 7 Days to Die, if you don't know, it's a survival horror crafting game. It's a lot like Minecraft with realistic graphics, and is all zombies. It's Oops All Zombies, essentially. And you build a base over the course of a week. And on the 7th day, you have what's called a horde night, where all of the zombies attack the base you built. And then you go back and you farm some more. And the next horde night comes 7 days later. It's even worse. So it's like it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And then at some point it resets. You know, you can go through the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I play this game with my brother, and it is like everything we love about Left 4 Dead 2 with the zombie types thrown into like survival horror crafting, and they always come at night, and it truly feels like you are in like a zombie movie. And it's scary at times. It's really scary. And again, like if they break the wall, you're just kind of like, you just run away. So it's like, it gives you this really cool moments. They also have these things that are like mini dungeons in these buildings and cities. And doing those also gives you that like fear and dread because there's like zombies around corners you can't see, and like there's traps and all sorts of stuff. And that's really, really fun to me. And like this is a horror game that's definitely a horror game. It's survival horror, and I play it a lot, and I love it. And I don't really like these kind of games that often, but maybe it's because I play it with my brother. That's what makes it so much fun. And he's a big survival game guy. But it's so fun. I recommend it to people. But this is like one of the big horror games and horror moments on this list is this. You know, like. Do
you like scream when you get scared? Like you and your brother just
Oh, for sure. It's just that my brother he is just like, whoa, like he does that, and I'm like, oh, he's scared. That's how I know.
That's what I do too. I do that.
You know what I learned from, I think I mentioned this last week on Fear, but I learned that I just try to shoot the thing that's in the way of me. It's scary, even though it doesn't do anything, which is funny though, because at the end of Fear, you do end up shooting ghosts, which is hilarious to me. But
you couldn't shoot them the whole time, but then at the end you can shoot them.
But then at the end, your bullets count for real. So they're ghost bullets, proton pack bullets. But yeah, so 7 Days to Die, very scary game. If you're looking for like a survival horror game that has some crafting and base building stuff, like I highly recommend it as far as like a spooky game for Halloween, and especially with friends.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of my big ones.
All right. Well, next game on the list is one that we both share as well. It's part of the Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2 series. Those games are very spooky in general. Like they're the way the zombies spawn is not always the same every time, so it's not like you can just know when there's going to be scary stuff. But there are some moments that take a break from the carnage and the just like blowing away zombies bit, where you have to be very careful and very quiet, and that is the witches.
Oh, I hate
Mike,
the witches so much.
Tell us about how you know when a witch is coming up.
You just hear spooky crying, just scary, faint,
it just sounds like a little kid
crying.
Just
my
crying.
gosh, it's the worst. They're like, let's take the things that are scariest in horror movies, children, and then add it to this cloth-filled death machine that just murders your whole group if you don't pay attention. And then it does the thing where it catches you and it like screams super loud. Yep. And then it runs up to you and starts like clawing you, and it takes you down pretty quick. Also, in 7 Days to Die, they're called screamer zombies, but they're essentially the exact same thing as the witches in Left 4 Dead. And yeah, I hate these. It's an amazing mechanic. It makes the game so scary. It puts your whole party on edge. Like everyone goes silent when you hear that crying whenever you're playing, and that's what makes it super fun. But oh man, it's so scary.
You sort of have to figure out what your strategy is going to be too, because it's like if we can get everybody over here, we can probably just kill her before anything bad happens, but you need to it's like everybody needs to be quiet, even though I guess you don't have to be quiet. It's not like she can hear your microphone, but you need to be quiet when you're moving. You need to nobody fire their gun. Hopefully there's no other zombies around, because that can cause a problem. And it's like, we just need to gather up and blast her, or you can just move on and just try to skip. And that's usually what I do. And that backfires sometimes if you end up going the wrong way and you have to come back, or you wake her up too soon, or you move too fast. And then it's just scary. Okay.
Dude, I'm always pro skip the witch, too.
Always pro skip the witch?
100% skip the witch. If you are not skip the witch in Left 4 Dead 2 and you must kill the witch, send us an email, because I want to hear your argument. Because I think it's way more trouble than it's worth, usually. Someone's always going to get down to like low health.
In the first game, I think you could, if you got the shotgun just right in the right spot, you could one-shot her before she wakes up or gets disturbed or whatever. But I don't think you could do that in the second one. There was an achievement for it, too, in the first one.
Oh, for killing her first?
Yeah, for killing her before she gets disturbed. I don't know what that state is called where she is woken up, but
and you're saying, of course, you kill her before she starts listening to nu metal disturbed.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you have to yell, "Ooh, ah, ah, ah," and then blast her.
That's the only time the game listens to your microphone.
Right. That's a Disturbed song, right?
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Okay, good.
How cool would it be if they made Left 4 Dead 3 and it did listen to your microphones?
Oh,
because they do that in
cool.
Phasmophobia, that new scary game that I haven't played yet.
Because the ghosts talk back in that game.
Yeah,
you can talk to them.
Yeah, you can talk to them and they say stuff to you, and it's like, oh my gosh! And if you say their name, it like makes them more aggressive.
Nope, that's a big nope from me.
Yeah, you don't want to play that game. I think it would be really funny if you and I played that game together. But we're both a bunch of scaredy-cats. So you'd be like, nope, no. We just go in, drop a camera, walk out. I'm just going to hang out in the truck for a while.
I know
the map would take us 3 hours to do.
Yeah, I know a bunch of people who really like playing that game, and it's not for me, I don't think.
Yeah, it's too scary. But yeah, I think Left 4 Dead 2 is like really the big, because it also like the whole model for, we've talked about it in the past, obviously, but if you haven't listened to that episode, the whole model is you're playing a horror movie, essentially. There's like a poster for each thing. It's really cool.
I have those posters up in my house too.
He does. They're really rad. And but it's just like a really good way to have like fun during Halloween. You know, it's just a fun. This is like probably one of the most Halloween games for me because of that.
Yeah, it's
because of
good.
Like the pulp horror movie thing you got going on there.
Mm-hmm.
I love it, but I do not like the witches. But I do like them because they're a great gameplay element. But they're just so spooky.
Yeah, I think that they're very well designed, right? Because they scare you the way they're supposed to, and then also the gameplay is kind of fun around them. But like part of the it's not super fun, and that's part of why they're so scary, right?
I think a really good episode idea for us sometime would be a love-hate list in video games. Like a thing that you hate because it's hard or you don't like it, but you love it because it needs to be in the game. Like there's probably a lot of Dark Souls bosses that are like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I can like something that you just like. The Witch in Left 4 Dead 2 would 100% be a love-hate thing for me because this is something huge about the game that I love, but also I hate it when I hear the witch crying because I know it's about to go down.
Yeah, that's a good one. We'll have to keep that one on the list. Put that one on the list.
I'll put it on the list. And you always have that one friend that likes to wake up the witch too. So that's the other
yeah,
problem.
There's always one. There's always one.
Any witch wakers out there, you send us an email. Okay. Do you want the next one?
Yeah, so the next one is from Ocarina of Time, and maybe some people, there's lots of kind of spooky moments in that game, especially like the whole Shadow Temple is sort of horror themed a little bit. And then if you want to talk about Majora's Mask, that whole game is a little bit scary. I guess it's not scary. It's more of it's got that dread feeling you were talking about. Majora's Mask does.
Yeah, with the moon.
Yeah. But the part that spooks me the most in Ocarina of Time is after you've completed the first 3 dungeons as a kid and you go pull a Master Sword out of the thing and you're an adult now and sort of Sheik kind of tells you like, hey, it's 7 years in the future. Ganon's taken over. Everything sucks now. And you're still in the Temple of Time and everything looks the same inside the Temple of Time. And then you step outside of the Temple of Time and everything, it's like nighttime, of course, because that's a scarier time. Or at least there's tons of clouds in the sky. Everything's sort of dead in like the Temple of Time area, and then you walk down the stairs and you go into the castle market area. And what was once as a child like a bustling marketplace with the stores and there's people there and it plays the fun music, dun 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 dun, that song.
Yeah, I know this song.
That it's like so fun. There's none of that is there. It's basically silent, and the only things that are there are the zombies. Shoot, I forget what they're called now. But they just scream. They look at you and they scream. And in most other places in the game, when they see you, you freeze and you can't move. In this part, they don't, but they still do the scream thing. And if you get too close to them, they will jump on you and just sort of like, I don't even know what's happening there when they jump on you and they just sort of like choke you to death, I guess. And it's very scary and you have to avoid them. And they're in other parts of the game too, but that's like the first thing you see when you've done like to set the stage of like what Hyrule is like now after Link has pulled the sword or the Master Sword out. It's like, no, everything sucks now. There's zombies and Ganon has taken over, and it's like, I hate that part. I hate it.
Do not like it. That sounds so scary.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, that whole like when all the game changes to like a different genre, because like it happens in Skyward Sword HD, what I'm playing too. Like the Shadow Realms are essentially stealth portions, and it's interesting when it changes like that, because then it just puts you on it. Stealth games in general just put me on edge.
Yeah, because they're so tense. Because
reason.
you move so slowly, and then it's like a one moment where, oh no, what I was trying to do has not happened, and I've been spotted, and now it's like dealing with being spotted, it becomes a different game.
Totally. The next one on our list, I love. And I don't know if I really talked about it that much when we covered Half-Life. Did I?
I don't know.
That is Ravenholm. Oh, Ravenholm.
Oh, we don't go there anymore.
We don't go there anymore.
That's the best part about Ravenholm is the way that it gets set up for you beforehand as you're walking through the like wherever Alex has her stuff set up. You walk down this hallway and she's kind of showing you around their like base of operations or whatever, and she goes, there's like a bunch of collapsed, like a tunnel that has sort of collapsed, and she points off there and she says, that's the tunnel to Ravenholm. It's like a pause, and she goes, we don't go there anymore. And you're like, oh, what happened here? Why don't we go there anymore? And then you go there, and the chapter is called We Don't Go to Ravenholm.
And it's a chainsaw blade flinging good time, if you ask me.
Zombies everywhere. You've just gotten the gravity gun. You can pick up saw blades and really play with the physics, and you can like cut the heads off stuff, and it's very gory and violent, very scary. And then you get Father Grigory.
Oh, Father Grigory. It's been like, so long.
He's a good guy, and but he's like this almost like church pastor, but his congregation that he talks about is all of the zombies in Ravenholm. And he shoots them because sometimes, they're trying to kill people. He's like a good guy, but he's like this like weird preacher. It's just really weird. Like there's something wrong with Father Grigory too, but it's in a way that like sort of helps you, I guess.
How cool would it be if in Left 4 Dead 2 they made a Ravenholm level? Just like as just in Left 4 Dead 2, like a mod makers made like a Ravenholm level of just like a crossover.
That would be so fun.
There's Ravenholm assets, you can get those.
If Valve doesn't do it, somebody has, I bet.
Yeah, and if Left 4 Dead 2 modding community is huge, they just put out new stuff like a couple months ago. Like it's big.
Yeah,
you could make like a Ravenholm level that's like a fun little crossover of Half-Life and Left 4 Dead.
Oh, yeah, I'd be surprised if that doesn't already exist.
Yeah, it probably does. We're not the first person here to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, like a Ravenholm map for Left 4 Dead.
Yeah, it's just like Ravenholm, and I think it's the meme of we don't go to Ravenholm.
Yeah,
that's what we all love and know about it. And it's horror, but like you said, with the gravity gun and the saw, it's playful. It's like you kind of experiment with the gravity gun while you're going through it.
Yeah.
So even though it's terrible and the sons of bad guys and it's super scary, it doesn't feel so bad because you got this new toy to play with.
That's a really good point. It teaches you how to use the gravity gun. It shows you all the different things the gravity gun can do. You can pick up items. It can there are some things you can interact with, like like blades that spin around when you hit them with the gravity gun too, that will cut things up. It like shows off the physics engine because the physics in Half-Life 2 were so cool in 2004. It was like just a really good, I think it was, that's the level they put in the demo for Half-Life 2.
Yeah.
Because it's such a good demonstration of all the Half-Life 2 things, the physics, the atmosphere, the gravity gun. All that was very cool.
I got to give Half-Life 2 another playthrough again because I just love it so much. And I really think Ravenholm might be one of my favorite moments in that whole game, Mm-hmm. Like, I might just find a way to jump to Ravenholm. Just play through Ravenholm again.
It's right up there with, like, at the end when you get the super duper gravity gun that lets you, like, pick people up. Like, that moment is cool. Like, that whole sequence of going through the city or the tower or whatever it's called, all that stuff is very cool. But Ravenholm is like... It's like halfway through the game, I want to say, too. Maybe not quite halfway through the game.
Someone's got to make a Ravenholm-themed haunted experience,
Oh, yeah.
That's got to happen.
I would stand outside that and watch other people do it.
You and I went through the Walking Dead ride at Universal Studios together. Yeah. Remember that? And we were all just like, why are we doing this?
Yeah, it was very... Yeah, it was
very scary.
The Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios in Los Angeles is pretty fun, but like also scary, and yeah,
it's so freaky. I just it's good, but if you like that kind of thing, but I am definitely more of I will play a spooky video game over a spooky haunted house place for sure.
Yeah, same.
All right. This next one I really want to hear you talk about because this is all you, and I never played this game.
Yeah, so I don't have a whole lot to say about this game because I didn't play it very much because of obvious reasons. It's very, very scary. But before I knew, this might be the game that taught me that I don't like horror games. Amnesia: The Dark Descent came out in like 2010. And the whole thing is basically about running away from this monster thing in this really old, like 1800s mansion house. And he's got blades for hands and he chases you down. He or she, whatever the thing is, chases you down and you have to like avoid it. And I don't remember a whole lot about it, but I just remember being very scared by it. And yeah, so Amnesia: The Dark Descent is kind of that's what I think of when somebody says, have you ever played? Like, what kind of horror games have you played? I'm like, I played Amnesia, and I was not into it. That blade hands thing was very scary. The monster is very scary in that game. And yeah, so I wish I could like give you more information about what this game is about. They came out with a sequel a couple of years later, A Machine for Pigs. I did not play that for obvious reasons. I did not finish Amnesia: The Dark Descent. I don't know if you triumph over blade hands at the end or not. I hope so, but I died a lot to blade hands in that game. That's what I call the monster, is blade hands. I don't know what the monster's name is.
I think that describes it pretty well.
Yeah, and I think so as you're like making your way through around the mansion, because it's not all scary all the time. Like there's lots of down moments. Of course, that's what makes the scary moments scary. But you're like finding documents and like sort of piecing together the story that I don't remember very well. Sorry for not very well preparing for this portion of this episode. But I remember the sort of the story that you piece together is kind of creepy too. So you're like piecing together this sort of creepy story, and then every now and then you've got to run and hide from blade hands, and so it's like scary on a brain level and scary on a physical level. Really well done if that's what you're into, I think. But it's what taught me that I'm not into it. So there you go, Amnesia: The Dark Descent.
And I also have a game that I noped right out of after about 10 minutes, and that was Outlast. You ever heard about Outlast?
Yeah, I've heard the name, and that's it.
So Outlast is a game where you go into a insane asylum, because of course you do, you know, and that's where the horror thing.
That's where all the scary stuff is.
Yeah, and you are a journalist, and you have a camera and a flashlight, you have a camera, and your camera has a light on it. I think Delilah's yelling really loud. That's okay though. I got like kind of hyped for it. It was around Halloween a couple of years ago. They just put it on Game Pass. I was like, let's do this. This was pretty recent, and I booted it up. Get into the insane asylum. I have a couple spooky moments happen, and then I keep getting caught, and it just scares me every time in this like basement flooded area, and I hated it. And I was just like, nope, I can't do this. I get too scared, and this is not worth it to me. Like, it's just so scary, and I couldn't do it. And I was like, I was hiding in lockers. I think I really like it when you have a gun or a weapon of some kind to make it. It works for me digitally. Having a digital gun makes me feel safer in the digital world, I think, for me.
Yeah.
In that game or those kind of games. That's why I could do Fear, you know? At least I could shoot the ghost. Would it hurt the ghost?
Yeah, they give you lots of guns in Fear, that's for sure.
They give you a lot of guns in Fear, yeah. So that was my one that I also just noped right out of probably 10, 15 minutes in. Just absolutely not, can't do this game. Which is because I was trying to play Game Pass games more often, you know? Mm-hmm. And I picked that one. Way
Mistake.
Too spooky. Couldn't do it, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I have one more, and then you have some bonuses.
Yeah,
too.
I got some bonus ones.
So my last one is actually, if we do an episode next week, it might be on this game, but I want to say like my scary moment from this game, because the game came out in 2002, so I was probably in 8th grade, if I had to guess, and 7th or 8th grade. I'm up in Alaska. It's wintertime. I'm hanging out with my friend. He has a GameCube, and I watch him play Eternal Darkness: Sanity's Requiem.
Ooh.
That game is pretty unique for the time, and I don't think... I mean, it's probably been pretty influential on other games. It's very similar to it's like third person. It's kind of Resident Evil-y, I guess you could say, with a lot of other elements. Like just the only thing that's Resident Evil about it is like the perspective, I suppose. Really, it's third person horror.
Yeah,
but there's like weird spells in it and runes, and there's also like time jumping, and you jump through different like people too. It's like characters you're jumping into. But the reason that this game is so scary, and what I remember, is sanity effects, which were things that would happen in the game, but they also had like things that would like break the fourth wall too. Mm-hmm. So when I was in 8th grade, I'm up in Alaska playing this with my friend. We play it for like 3 hours, pitch black dark. It's dead of night. We should have gone to bed. We're children, whatever. Playing this game, and his TV turns off. And we're just like, what? That's weird. We turn the TV back on. And then you play a little farther, and then your GameCube shuts off. And we're like, what? And it just kept messing with us, and it was totally working on us. Like, we were so scared. It made you think you had like technical problems with your console, or it would like say it's going to delete your save. Other things I looked up, this didn't happen to me, but other things it can do is like a to be continued, or like promotions for a sequel. Like, they make things up. Also, though, your like guy could be walking and his like arms will fall off. It's just like, it's super scary, and it's crazy because it's Nintendo. It's a Nintendo property.
Yeah, they published that game, huh?
Nintendo published this game that's so scary, and they've tried to do it a bunch of other times. It's failed. They had like a Kickstarter to try to do like a spiritual successor. It didn't work. They tried to like make a sequel through Nintendo. It didn't work. It's like, it's probably the scariest moment I still remember from any video game is playing Eternal Darkness with my friend, and like me. He's like, "Do you want to play it a bit?" I'm like, "No, I'll just watch you this whole time because I'm terrified and I don't like it." So that's my big spooky game, and I might do an episode on this game because it's very unique. It's very old, and I really don't think it's had any sequels. It's kind of
I think it's a one-off. Yeah,
it's a one-off kind of thing. They tried to make a sequel through Nintendo. It didn't work. And then they tried to do a crowdfunding thing for something called Shadow of the Eternals, and that didn't work from what I read. But yeah, it's like, ooh, it still gives me goosebumps. And I was in 8th grade. And I mean, obviously now if I play it, it's probably not nearly as scary just because the graphics don't look as good. And that will take me out of it. But back then, totally worked. So, and also, it's more like cosmic horror, like Lovecraftian horror, which I feel like doesn't really get very scary to me that often for some reason.
Yeah.
But they really nailed it with that game. So that's my last one. Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem on the GameCube.
Okay. Well, I have a couple of bonus ones, and the reason I'm calling them bonus is because these are not scary moments in games that were meant to be scary. These are a couple of moments that scared me regardless. The first one is from Banjo-Kazooie. There's a whole level in Banjo-Kazooie called Mad Monster Mansion that is kind of like Halloween, spooky themed. You turn to a pumpkin and that. It's fine. You fight skeletons. It's not really that scary. It's just like a Halloween themed level. But at the end of the first Banjo-Kazooie game, I think they do this in the second one too. After you've beaten all the levels and you've gotten enough jiggies to move on to like right before the final boss, there's a section of the game called Grunty's Furnace Fun, which is a really cool idea in this. Like, I've never seen any other game do something like this before, where it turns into a game show at the end, and you have to answer trivia questions about the game itself. And so, for some reason, in my like 8-year-old, 10-year-old brain, the combination of this game being so self-aware and like breaking the fourth wall, combined with the visual aesthetic of this like game board over a pit of lava. Which lava like didn't scare me at other points in this game, but for some reason the way that this board is laid out over a pit of lava, like a huge pit of lava, was scary to me. And the fact that when you get a question wrong, you take damage, but nothing comes out to hit you. You just like Banjo plays to like the like jumping motion where it's like I took damage, that like animation plays, and you lose a honeycomb. And for some reason the combination of all those things makes that part like it still makes my heart like speed up. Like it's still like I find it very stressful and scary. And then I also need to answer these trivia questions about this game that I just played through that I don't remember because I didn't know there was going to be trivia at the end. Like I didn't know I was going to be tested on all this stuff. And so there's like that nightmare of like showing up to the final, you know, of the course you took where you skipped all the classes or you weren't paying attention the whole semester and now you got to take the final. Like that's thrown in there too. And it just freaks me out, man. I don't know. It was scary to me.
I love it. What do Mike and Tyler have on their horror games? Like Memories episode, Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah. Scary game. They're like, oh yeah, I guess if you're a little kid, Mad Monster Mansion might have been kind of scary. Like, nope, that one's fine. That, you know, there's bats and it's so spooky and there's ghosts and stuff, but you know, it's Banjo-Kazooie. It's all cartoony. It's like, you know, not that bad. But yeah, for Grunty's Furnace Fun, like there's something about that.
I mean, can I add one small bonus in here because it's just a mechanic, and I think it's great. But it is scary as a kid, is the mechanic in ghost houses in Mario of the ghosts stop following you when you look at them.
Oh,
That's scary. That's a very scary thing to do for like a child to play a video game. It gave me anxiety for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're not looking at them and they follow you. Oh.
Mm-hmm. Super scary. And then in a Mario 64, they go like invisible when you look at them.
Yeah.
Which is, it's spooky. That like the little mechanics like that you don't even think about, but you're like, that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Our listeners are going to think we are the biggest scaredy-cats after this episode. So.
Yeah, Tyler's scared of the game show at the end of Banjo-Kazooie. That's the level I'm at here. Anything scarier than that, I nope right out. The last bonus scary thing that I have is scary for, I think, kind of a similar reason, because this is a thing that was not intended to be in these games at all, and it seems to have some like magical properties around it. Glitches in general are like a good thing that lots of copy pasta will use on the internet to like, you read copy pasta about like cursed versions of Super Mario 64 or like cursed versions of Pokemon that have glitches and stuff that are like scary, right? But in Pokemon Red and Blue version and Yellow version, the originals, there's a glitch for some of our younger listeners. I'm sure some of our older listeners that played Pokemon know all about this glitch because it's a very beneficial glitch if you use it right. But there's a glitch where you can fight a specific, or you do a couple of specific actions beforehand, and then you go into this one area like on the side of an island, and you surf up and down. And due to bugs and the way the game is programmed, the Pokemon that you run into there is one that is not in the Pokedex. It's not. It's like a blank. It's like a error Pokemon basically, and it's called Missing No, because that's the name of the Pokemon that comes up. I guess it's short for like missing number or something. It's Missing No, or it's M. It kind of changes. It's all garbled. Like the sprite of this thing is all garbled, and it's like level 0 or level 255. You can catch it, but that like does some weird stuff to your game because it's not a real Pokemon. It has like a move set that like doesn't make any sense for any Pokemon to have, and I think it has maybe even has moves that like other Pokemon don't have, because like moves that were sort of cut out of the game or whatever for whatever reason. But people would do it all the time because in your items, whatever item is in the 6th slot in your items, you would effectively get the maximum amount of that item. Like usually it's 255, and it would like kind of glitch out and the icon changes. So you would use it to like get unlimited or functionally unlimited Master Balls, or functionally unlimited revives, or whatever you wanted, like items that would help. So every kid who's playing Pokemon is doing this because unlimited Master Balls is the perfect way to catch every Pokemon in the game. But there's something about it as a kid for me, and maybe I'm not the only one, about this Pokemon that's not supposed to exist, that doesn't exist, that was not put in this game on purpose. This isn't like a story thing that Nintendo put in there to freak people out. Like it's not supposed to exist, and it does. And everybody knows about it. And it like sort of has some weird glitches it'll do to your game if you catch it. People have had their save games erased. I'm sure there's all kinds of rumors about what it can do. I'm sure somebody has done a detailed breakdown of what this thing is and how it works in the game, probably. But it was just like so scary to me. And the fact that we all had to like make this sort of bargain that like if we fought this thing, we were hoping it wouldn't sort of like erase our save file or ruin our game in order to get this deal to get, unlimited Master Balls or whatever. Like it's like a weird like monkey's paw kind of thing of like, well, gosh, I hope it doesn't ruin my game this time. But I gotta get these Master Balls, right? Like that whole, like all of that stuff worked together to like sort of freak me out as a little kid. And like, I don't know. It still kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies.
It does. I'm looking at a picture of it, and it does look creepy right now. It looks very scary. Just like a block of random like symbols. Ugh.
Yeah, it's just garbled. And I'm sure there's a technical reason for what it, the reason it looks like that. And I'm sure there's a detailed thing on the internet that's like, here's how Missing No works. And like, maybe that'll make it less scary, or maybe it'll make it more scary if I read that. So I'm like scared to look up more information about it. But yeah, that was a crazy time to be a kid playing Pokemon, especially when games still had that like sort of like mysteriousness around them, or mystique, nowadays. As an adult, I can sort of see the strings on a lot of things in games. But back then it was like magical almost, in a bad way.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I also would pronounce it Missing No the whole time, like it was a real Pokemon, even though it's definitely missing number.
Yeah, Missing No. Oh yeah, Number. Yeah, I mean, there isn't a real way to pronounce it because it's not supposed to exist, right? Like nobody made this thing, so
it's real to me. Okay. All right, so that was our games that scared us. Okay, if you liked it and you want to share your game that scared us, please email us at codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. And with that, we're going to read some emails now.
Yeah, let's read some emails.
I'm going to read Will's email, if that's okay with you first.
Okay.
This is from Will. It's spooky season with SZN. Okay, it says read in your spookiest voice. Okay, here we go. Good evening, Mike and Tyler. Was that scary?
Yeah, it was scary. That's scary.
Oh, thanks. All right. As interesting as Kent's Volume 2 is, I'm enjoying the annual digression to spooky games. In the spirit of the holiday, I wanted to pose 2 questions to you guys. First, my girlfriend and I have a tradition of watching classic and or terrible horror movies, as well as Scooby-Doo every year. This actually stemmed from my own family's tradition of consuming spooky media in October. As a funny anecdote, when I was very young, my dad accidentally rented a rated R horror flick called Uncle Sam from Hollywood Video, rest in peace. We got all 5 minutes into the movie when a man dressed up as Uncle Sam, started spying on a girl taking her shirt off before getting brutally cut down by the titular zombie. Yeah, my stepmom was horrified and quickly shut off the VCR. Instead, we watched Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. Good times. Anyway, what are some yearly traditions y'all observe for Halloween? Well, I don't know if it's necessarily yearly, but I do always try to watch Ghostbusters in October at some point.
Yeah.
Like just in the month, because I just love the movie Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2. I have zero preference to both of them. I love them both so much. So that's kind of something that I do every year. But do you have anything you do every year, Tyler?
I don't know if I have anything that I do every year. We usually will like decorate our apartment in sort of fall and or Halloween, like spooky stuff. But I don't know if we have any real traditions, except in more recent years, we do bring up the David Pumpkin sketch on Saturday Night Live every year and watch that
again.
Because
I love that sketch.
It's so funny. That sketch is one of the funniest sketches on Saturday Night Live in recent years, and I just love it. And so we'll watch that. But I'm not really a spooky movie guy. I don't dislike the Halloween season and like all of the stuff. Like there are some people who really hate like Christmas season or something. I don't dislike Halloween the way in any way, but it's also not my favorite. Like I don't have any special love for it either. So I don't really have any like traditions, I guess, which maybe is kind of a bummer. Maybe I should make some. Maybe I should watch David Pumpkins on loop on Halloween every year.
That's a good idea, because I think David Pumpkins is one of the greatest sketches of all time. I'm really into it.
Yeah,
it's also like, where is this going? And then it just
Nowhere.
works. And it just works though. And like also famous line, there's 100 floors of frights.
Yeah, it's 100 floors of frights. You can't all be winners.
I love that. I love it so much. I do I guess it's just kind of a tradition to me in that I bail out every year. Every year I tell myself I'm going to play a scary game and I just never finish it or never do it.
The bailing out is the tradition?
Yeah, I bail out of a scary thing because that was how Outlast happened. And then this year I'm playing Fear and I kind of stopped in the middle of it because I'm like, I don't know. There's other games that aren't as scary. Yeah, it's a regular thing, but I do watch Ghostbusters every year around this time. So it's my thing. I also painted a pumpkin this year. Maybe I'll share it on the Discord. I put Pac-Man ghosts on a pumpkin.
Ooh.
Looks pretty good. I'll share it on the Discord. So, all right. Let's keep going with Will's email. 2, you guys talk about how easily spooked you are. So I'm almost positive you each have something to tell us here. What scary media scarred you as kids? In my case, it wasn't the trashy Uncle Sam slasher. It was a book, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. For those that don't know, these were books that consolidated urban legends and famous stories into kid-friendly versions. Or it would be kid-friendly if the illustrations weren't horrifying. Seriously, look it up. I used to imagine the skeletal girl on the cover was coming out of my closet. Better than Tom Cruise, I guess. What about y'all? I do have a scary movie that scared me, and it's not a scary movie. Do you know the 1989 film Little Monsters starring Howie Mandel?
I'm not familiar with this movie.
Essentially, Fred Savage finds out the monster living under his bed is from like a land of like monsters, and he goes there. But it scared me so much as a kid because I didn't like the idea of monsters being under my bed. Now this movie, I would feel nothing. But back then, very scary to me. But I also, did you read Goosebumps? I read Goosebumps too.
I did read a lot of Goosebumps books, yeah.
They were kind of scary for like children.
Yeah, they're a little spooky.
I'd give it a reread for a Goosebumps book because I'm pretty sure they're really short. I'm pretty sure I could kill it in like a day.
Yeah. I don't have any specific things that I am scared of. I can remember there was an episode of Batman, the animated series, which was, to be fair, kind of a dark and it was kid friendly, but it was, it was a spookier show than other kid friendly shows. There was an episode that I haven't watched in years, so maybe I'm getting this all wrong, but Batman gets locked in some kind of capsule thing where he's like in a very tight space, right? And I think the Joker tries to stab him through the whatever trash can thing he's in with a sword, and he doesn't hit Batman. Batman dodges it. But then he throws this can thing in the water, the ocean or whatever in Gotham City, and Batman sinks to the bottom because, of course, it's filled up with water now. And that scared the crap out of me because, 1, small spaces. 2, he was going to drown, right? And 3, the way Batman gets out of it is by calling his bat submarine to come and shoot a laser at it to get him out of there. And if that ever happened to me, I didn't have a bat submarine to come and laser me out. So I was just scared that if that ever happened to me, I would just drown. I would die.
You heard it here first, folks. Tyler, Amazon wishlist, Bat Submarine.
Yeah, get me one of those so that I can call it and laser me out. And maybe I'm misremembering that because, again, I haven't seen that episode in probably 25 years, so or longer than that even. So maybe I'm misremembering how that episode went down, but it scared me and I wouldn't watch it again because obvious reasons.
Dude, I also found the intro to Nickelodeon's Are You Afraid of the Dark scarier than the rest of the show. Like, the intro scared me more.
Oh, yeah, that was pretty spooky.
And I still don't like watching horror movie trailers when I go to a movie theater. I just don't like it.
Yeah, me too.
I didn't come here to be scared. I came here to watch James Bond. Okay? I don't need this. It's not what I want. All right. Will goes on to say, P.S. If you ever decide to do an episode on the history of RPGs/JRPGs, this is a phenomenal article that covers the broad strokes. If you wanted to share it with y'all, oh, and thank you. And he says, and so we'll look into that. Keep up the great work and happy Codex Ween. Will from the school whose library refused to ban scary stories.
Thanks,
I'm going to Google this cover when we're done with this show.
Yeah.
Scary stories to tell in the dark. Ugh, creepy. Okay, you want to do the next email?
Yeah, I'm going to read this one here from Shane called Solid Snake Switcheroo. Hello, friends. I don't have a question, but maybe a quick story. I'm listening to your old episodes for a second time and just finished the Metal Gear Solid series. Needless to say, it brought up some feelings. When I was a kid, I was an enormous Metal Gear Solid fan. I was such a big fan, I begged my mom to pre-order Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty for me. I told her it was going to be the best game ever made, and I simply had to have it. Yes, I was a passenger in the first-class car of the MGS2 hype train. My begging worked, and to this day, Metal Gear Solid 2 remains the only game I have ever pre-ordered. I have definitely pre-ordered consoles, but MGS2 is the one and only game. As Tyler mentioned, the ad campaign for MGS2 focused solely on Snake with no mention of Raiden. The TV ads made me drool. Imagine my surprise when the tanker mission ended and Raiden showed up for the remainder of the game. I played through it like a good little gamer, but I was furious. I felt I had been duped, lied to, cheated, and other bad things. I told my mom the gameplay and story were great, but Konami blew it by making Raiden the main character. Now this is where Tyler and I diverge. Tyler acted like an adult, liked the game for what it was, and even kept playing the Metal Gear Solid games as they were released. I, on the other hand, acted like the petulant I was, and to this very day, I have never played another Metal Gear Solid game. However, there is hope for me because I listened to the Metal Gear Solid series a second time and paid closer attention to Tyler's awesome work. Aw, shucks, thanks. He has convinced me of my childish ways and that I need to pick up these games again. So I'm happy to report that I'm currently halfway through Metal Gear Solid 1 on the original PlayStation and will be playing the whole series. Thanks for bearing with me through the, as always, long email. Keep up on the awesome job you're doing with the pod. Mike, I hope to see you do stand-up someday. You are very funny. Be safe and spooky spider butts. Shane.
Thanks, you, Shane.
I'm glad that you're giving it another chance. The biggest difference, I think, between how you played that game and how I played that game is you were on board that hype train, like you said. I played it a couple of years after it came out, probably. It came out in, 2001, and I probably played it in 2004 or 2005. And so going into it, I knew that people didn't like it. I knew why they didn't like it, and I had decided I was just going to play it just to see what it was all about, and I loved the game, the first game. I had just recently played it. So my expectations were set properly going into it. I knew what I was getting into. But I can imagine if you were getting stoked for that game, and as a little kid, this game that you begged for, because as a kid, you don't get that many games, or at least we didn't back in those days, right? Like when you got a game, you played it through to the end, even if it was bad, because that was all you had. And so I can imagine being very disappointed by the way that game goes if you were super duper hyped for it. So I'm sorry that happened to you, Shane, but I'm glad you're giving it another shot because I love all of those games.
True. I still need to play Metal Gear Solid. I'm having a hard time. There's just too many games. There's so many games.
The fourth one is I just love it so much because it fully buys into its BS, you know? And like the fourth one, you said? The fourth one especially, yeah, because it's like it knows it's like sort of this epic conclusion to this tale that's being told between Solid Snake and Liquid Snake / Ocelot. There's some weirdness going on there, but like I just love how like totally like going back and rewatching some of the cutscenes from it. I'm like, this is totally ridiculous. I'm 100% on board. I love it. It's so good. Even though like, anyway, I want you to play those games because I really want to talk to you about them.
I know. I need to do it. I need to just buckle down one time and just be like, this is my life now. You know, just go for it. Okay. Last email. A hidden gem of the DS era. This is sent to us from Sage. Sage says, hi, Mike and Tyler. Just to preface this email, as of now, I have not listened to every episode of the podcast, although I intend to. So if this email is something you have already covered, just ignore it, lol. Well, joke's on you. It's not something we covered, so that's why I'm reading it. And I read that too, because I want to let you know you're good, Sage. don't ever change. Okay, here we go. I wanted to email and talk about a game from the DS era that I have not seen many people talk about. The game in question is Dragon Quest Heroes Rocket Slime. Rocket Slime is a spin-off from the Dragon Quest series that focuses around the world and life of the slimes that appear in the Dragon Quest games.
Okay.
The slime is essentially like a first-level enemy. So it would be the same if Rattata or Pidgey from Pokemon got their own games, which I would play. I would play that so much. Okay. The game is really well done and with plenty of intriguing level designs, fun mechanics, and great music. The core mechanic of the game is about using these tanks and fighting with each other. The tanks are not normally like any military tanks we know, but more like giant metal robots in the shape of certain characters throughout the game. Fun side mechanics such as tank health, what kind of ammo you can use, and even who else is on your tank crew, which all have their own unique abilities to help you win. The game is littered with funny Square Enix references. One of the tanks is shaped like a tree and has the name Chrono Twigger. Chrono Twigger, that's fun. And with plenty of puns and funny dialogue. If you have not played this game, I highly recommend you pick it up and play through it. The game isn't long by any means, but can sometimes get confusing with some of the puzzles. I love your podcast. Keep it up. You guys make the 20-minute drive to campus so much better. Arachnid that's strike through, and it says spider butts. Sage. Thank you,
Thanks,
Sage. Very funny. Thank you for the email. Yeah, that's a great recommendation. Dragon Quest Heroes Rocket Slime. I will look into it because I have
Slime.
a DS that's just sitting there right now, and I miss it, you know? I miss that console.
Games. Yeah.
There you go. That's all the emails, though. If you want to send us an email again, you can go codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. You can rate and review and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to us, or follow us on Spotify, or review it on Apple Podcasts. But really, if you just told your friends, that would be cool too. That's great. We don't really do advertising for the show, so it's just nice to hear from people. We have a Discord as well. You can send me an email and I'll send you a link, or go to my Twitter @mecoletta, MECOLETTA. Click on the pinned tweet at the top of my profile, and then you get an invite that never expires. Tyler's also on Twitter @SneakerElf. If you want to talk to him about Metal Gear Solid and how scared we are. And with that,
Yep. Give me your Metal Gear Solid opinions at me.
I think that's pretty much it. Well, I just did the wrong order, but what have you been playing, Tyler? We never did that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've been playing. I'm fully on board the Destiny train again, like 100%, right back on. And really want to do some raids, and I really want to get some of the like exotic weapons that drop from the raids. So I've been playing a lot of that, and just completing a bunch of quests and stuff. So yeah, mostly Destiny, to be honest. When I have game time this week, I had kind of a busy week, so I didn't have as much game time. Destiny and then Metroid Dread in between as well. That's
nice.
That's kind of it. What have you been playing?
I've also been playing a lot of Destiny. I haven't played a lot of Ghostbusters this week. I wanted to, but it just didn't really happen, and I've also had kind of a busy week, so that's my plan for next week, is to play some Ghostbusters and beat that game. Right. It won't take me that long, and it is really fun. I'm on like the second part of it where I'm like in Times Square, so I haven't played it a lot, really. Like to get to Times Square, it took like an hour. It's not that bad, but it seems really, it's really fun, and I really, it's like, it's weird to play a game that's like old style in quotes, where it's just like, yeah, it's linear adventure game, just do the thing, you know?
Yeah.
But it's kind of refreshing and it's nice, so I'm really enjoying it. But okay, with that, we're going to end the episode. We don't know what we're doing next week. Maybe it's Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem. Maybe it's something else. I don't know. We'll see. Surprises. But with that, you want to say bye to everybody, Tyler?
Yeah, goodbye to everybody, Tyler.